So what is the fundamental difference between what the Minneapolis church school shooter did and what the Israeli forces have done and are still doing to this day to the children of Gaza? Well, in principle, there is no fundamental difference. Both targeted children, but it's just on the scale, though. It's so much vaster scale what's going on in Gaza, what the Israeli forces are doing as they target children deliberately in Gaza is just so much more on a massive scale. Additionally, at least in the case of the Minneapolis school shooting, there's no evidence the U.S. funded with knowledge and forethought of what the shooter would do to help fund the Minneapolis school shooter to do what the shooter did. But in the case of Israel, U.S. Congress and presidents, with knowledge and forethought, are deciding to give the state of Israel the guns and ammunition and bombs that the U.S. politicians with knowledge and forethought know that Israel will use those guns and bullets and bombs to deliberately target children and healthcare workers and the elderly in Gaza on a massive scale. So, in that sense, it's even worse what's going on in Gaza, because the U.S. politicians know what's going on, and they know that Israel needs the help of the United States. Israel would not be able to commit these crimes against humanity if it wasn't for U.S. assistance. So, I believe in governing, doing foreign policy according to principles. Now, if we follow principles, if we apply the same general principles that it is wrong to target children, then there is no fundamental difference in principle with what the Israeli forces are doing towards children with what the Minneapolis school shooter did towards children. You just apply the same general principles to specific cases, but follow the same general principles. It's wrong. That general principle is that it's wrong to target children. Full stop. That's it. But that is what is going on, and I'm just going to make this a short commentary, and I'm going to follow my commentary by putting some testimony of doctors that have come back from Gaza who treated treated children there, and they testify that the only possible way that these bullets the wounds that the children are getting, it only could be due to deliberate targeting, execution of children by Israeli forces. And also there's also targeting. Israeli forces have also been targeting healthcare workers too. I'll leave a testimony too of that, and following my commentary. So I just wanted to make this short video. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. The United States is helping Israel commit mass genocide in Gaza, mass murder. It's a crime against humanity. What is going on? It is wrong, and it should stop immediately. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say for now. If you're still watching, thanks for watching.
if you can think of something bad that is happening in the world, it's happening in Gaza or to people from Gaza. The things that I saw there that really stood out or really impacted me and made me realize what's actually going on were a few. Number one was the malnutrition and starvation, which is deliberate. That's perfectly obvious. Even American senators are giving speeches saying that it's deliberate. The second thing was the targeting of children with gunfire. That I was not expecting to see, actually. I knew how many children had been killed. I knew about the massive killing in general, but I just assumed it was all from bombings. But that doesn't explain children getting shot in the head. Oh boy. That doesn't explain children getting shot in the head. And definitely not every day. I mean, literally every day I was there, I saw a child shot in the head. I kept the journal when I was there, and I just went through it because some reporters asked me to. And like quite literally every day I was there, I saw a child shot in the head. That's not an accident. That's deliberate targeting of children for death. That's murder.
The injury patterns I've seen most consistently are things like crush injuries as a result of Israeli airstrikes on homes. Between 60 to 70% of those injured and those who make it to the hospital are actually children. I can tell you that I have seen injuries that indicate deliberate targeting of children and deliberate targeting of civilians. So I've seen things like gunshot wounds to the abdomen of children, to the chest. I have documented evidence of gunshot wounds to the extremities of babies, quadcopter attacks on children, gunshot wounds to the chest of children. I saw things like Israeli landmines exploding on children who were playing in a cemetery. So the injury patterns and the things that you see as a doctor are quite horrifying, more so than the first time around. I think this second mission, the injuries have been a lot worse and a lot more catastrophic and devastating.
When were you in Gaza?
End of April for the first couple weeks. And then there's sniper bullets. I have children that were shot twice.
Wait, you're saying that children in Gaza are being shot by snipers?
Definitively. I have 2 children that I have photographs of that were shot so perfectly in the chest I couldn't put my stethoscope over their heart more accurately, and directly on the side of the head. In the same child. No toddler gets shot twice by mistake by the world's best sniper. And they're dead center shots.
In fact, more than 20 doctors recently in Gaza also told Sunday Morning about gunshot wounds to children. One American doctor told us he even reviewed CT scans to confirm what he saw because he, quote, didn't believe that this many children could be admitted to a single hospital with gunshot wounds to the head. Some shootings have been captured on video.
So, of all the disaster zones you've seen, how does Gaza compare?
All of the disasters I've seen combined, 40 mission trips, 30 years, ground zero, earthquakes, all of that combined doesn't equal the level of carnage that I saw against civilians in just my first week in Gaza.
And when you say civilians, is it mostly children?
Almost exclusively children. I've never seen that before. Never seen that. I've seen more incinerated children than I've ever seen in my entire life combined. I've seen more shredded children in just the first week.
Shredded?
Shredded.
What do you mean?
Missing body parts. Being crushed by buildings, the greatest majority, or bomb explosions, the next greatest majority. We've taken shrapnel as big as my thumb out of 8-year-olds.
The UN reports that to date, more than 80% of Gaza's population has been displaced and the majority of its buildings destroyed. A reality which has taken its own toll on the well-being of children.
What about the emotional wounds?
How can you measure that? I can't measure my own. How do you be an orphan and watching your family, melted in front of you and shredded in front of you? How do you fix that? Ever fix that?
In fact, so many Palestinian children have had family members killed that doctors created a shorthand term, WCNSF. wounded child, no surviving family.
Every single part of the hospital has been destroyed. The whole infrastructure of the hospital has been destroyed. When I spoke to Marwan yesterday, he told me there were 107 patients still in the hospital, 60 medical staff. God only knows what has happened to them. I think we've seen some of the pictures. Surgeons I know have been executed in the last 48 hours there. Bodies have been discovered in the last 12 to 24 hours who have been handcuffed with their arms behind their back. And so there is no doubt at all that multiple healthcare workers have been executed there in the last few days.
You believe executed by whom, Doctor?
By the Israeli Defense Force.
Why would they seek to execute surgeons and medical professionals?
Well, they've been doing it since October the 7th. Over 450 healthcare workers have been killed. Friends of mine that I have worked with over the years. Many have been abducted as well, and nothing has been heard of them since. So there is no doubt in my mind, and I can bear witness from this from my time at Al-Aqsa Hospital and from talking to people, that there's been direct targeting of the healthcare system in Gaza, direct targeting of hospitals, and multiple killings of healthcare workers.
Any death is tragic, but this is not, and I say again, anyone dying in any sense. So this is not, and please don't be upset by this expression, collateral damage. This is specifically targeted, you're saying, medical professionals by the IDF to be taken off and executed, is your belief?
Most certainly, that is my belief.
Have you at any time seen anything that would lead you to believe that there had been terrorists who were hiding in the hospital?
Without exception, every single one has responded to say they have never witnessed any Hamas militant in the hospitals they have worked in. And I've seen, I think, probably a dozen now seriously injured young boys who have been shot in the abdomen or the chest. One of them, a 12-year-old, died on the operating table because the injuries were so severe. And they're all from gunshot wounds. And they all described to me, and their families described to me, and indeed colleagues of mine, Gazan medical colleagues who are looking for food as well, have gone to these same distribution sites and witnessed these injuries as well. They're all describing that they're being shot by Israeli soldiers or by the quadcopters, the drones which are being remotely controlled by the Israelis, and fire, often indiscriminately, often targeted. And I'm seeing we're all seeing a very clear pattern of injuries. I've seen the abdominal injuries, but my colleagues in the emergency room describe a very clear pattern where on particular days they'll see different body parts targeted. So on one day there'll all be abdominal gunshot wounds, on another day there'll all be head gunshot wounds or neck gunshot wounds, on another day there'll be arm or leg gunshot wounds. And on last Saturday, there were 4 young teenage boys, all brought in very, very rapidly in succession with gunshot wounds to their testicles. So they're clearly being targeted to their testicles. And this is a pattern that we're seeing every day, that these young teenage boys are systematically being targeted. And it's almost as if a game is being played, that they're deciding to shoot the head today and the neck tomorrow and the testicles the day after.
Okay, well, there you have it. Nobody can plead stupid anymore about what is going on in Gaza and what the Israelis are doing with U.S. funding. And also, I also want to make sure that we stay on track to this point. Because what the Zionists are master manipulators. They're geniuses, evil geniuses, but geniuses nonetheless in molding public opinion and controlling the narrative. And what I often find is happening is that there's the derailing of the public debate by the use of red herrings on this topic. What is a red herring? A red herring is a technique to derail a topic derail a debate, usually to a related, still on the same general topic, but not on a specific issue. So, like if I bring up the point of Israel's targeting children the Israeli snipers are targeting children. Well, what the Zionists will try to do is to alter the debate, just shift it over a little bit, and talk about another related topic, depending on whether you're like a Republican or Democrat. Like Republicans will talk about maybe things that they'll quote some bad things that Hamas said, for instance. Or the Democrats will say, well, we're working towards a two-state solution. That's an idea. Or they'll say, well, Israel has a right, or both sides will say Israel has a right to exist. Or something along those lines. They'll just throw out these different related topics, but so what happens then is the debate gets off track, so that they do not have to defend an indefensible position. So that's what the red herring is when you are able to evade having to defend an indefensible position. So nobody can defend the position that it's okay to target children with snipers, at least according to the court of public opinion in America, which the Israelis are completely dependent upon. They cannot continue their military onslaught upon the people of Gaza and elsewhere, Yemen, Lebanon, with the West Bank, Iran, without U.S. support. Massive billions of dollars worth of armaments and other financial support. They could not continue that. It just would take one phone call from the president, and they just tell them to stop, and then they'd have to stop. I mean, if the president meant it, and then they knew the president meant it of the U.S. Then the Israelis would have to stop, because they cannot continue without U.S. support. So they need, as a result, they need U.S. public support for what they are doing. So that the U.S. public will continue to vote for members of Congress and presidents. They continue to greenlight and vote for who they in turn vote for to give billions of dollars in support to Israel. So it's very, very important to the Israelis that the U.S. Perception of them is generally positive in what they're doing. So they take great pains, without us realizing it, to mold public perception of the state of Israel and what they're doing. And so what they do is throw out those red herrings, so that whenever someone like myself brings up these specifically this point of that allegations that Israeli forces are targeting children, then it is imperative on. So then what Israel does is they just continue driving home all these red herrings, so that then those red herrings get, they tell the influencers who they can have control on, the popular influencers that Israel has control over. They tell them to say, just bring up all these other topics that are related, but shift the debate just a little bit, just enough, so they can avoid the indefensible topic. So they can just talk about something that is defensible, that is debatable, such as, well, whether or not Israel has a right to exist, whether say a two-state solution is the answer, whether Netanyahu is a good guy or not, or maybe he's really bad, or talk about everything but this one position that is indefensible, and that's what Israel is doing to children and healthcare workers in Gaza and the elderly and women, but specifically, if the one universal thing around the world is that you should not hurt children deliberately, but that's what the Israeli IDF forces are doing. They're deliberately targeting children, as you just heard there in those testimony from the doctors who have returned from Gaza. So so that's what happens, is that you got to make sure that you don't let your if you're in this public debate, don't let yourself get derailed by these Israeli talking points that have been fed down to the public through these like influencers on TV, radio, and the internet. So I'm not blaming the people who who follow these talking points, who may bring them up, because they're just being they're being influenced, unfortunately, by these talking heads. And so I don't blame the common folk who are being influenced to hop onto these red herrings. They're not the ones. It's the common folk. They're not intentionally trying to derail the debate. They're just being influenced by the influencers that they are listening to on the TV, radio, and internet. And so that's it's unfortunate, but I understand it happens. So what people need to do is to remember, just keep focusing on this point. Don't let the debate get derailed. I think because people it'll start to register in the minds of the audience and whoever you're debating, online or in person. Just keep on this one point. There's clear evidence that Israel is targeting children. It is wrong. All those other issues, those are side issues. What Hamas has said, whether or not Israel has a right to exist, whether or not there's a two-state solution is the best solution or not. Those are all side issues. Let's focus. Stay focused on this one topic. Israeli forces are targeting children. The U.S., by funding Israel, is helping them target children, just like the Minneapolis school shooter. So the Israeli forces are just like the Minneapolis school shooter. They're no better. So we must stop funding Israel immediately. By funding Israel, U.S. is funding murderers of children. It's as simple as that. And that must stop immediately. So I just wanted to add that point, make it clear. The U.S. government is funding child killers of children, not child killers. I should say the U.S. is funding the killers of children on a mass scale, by the thousands. They're killing thousands and thousands of children deliberately. The Israel forces are. So we have to stop funding Israel immediately. No exceptions. It must stop right now. Okay. That's my discussion for today. All right, if you're still watching, thanks for watching.